Morning update.
Thank you.
What's your secret? I knew you when I was a student, and when I saw you join the former president on his campaign tour of the Central Region, I stole glances at you. I don't know why. You still look very pretty, madam.
Thank you.
I've taken you by surprise. Ghanaians are watching you and they want to know the secret why you still look very young, madam.
They should continue praising God. And that's the secret.
That's the secret. Thank you. I'm sure I took her by surprise because I'm still admiring her because she has been a woman who has influenced society. And this morning she is going to be my guest. We also expect that the spokesperson of the former president, Joyce Bawa Muktari, will also join us on the show. You have been around Ghana and politics for a long time. And I'm sure after following the former president through the Central Region and the places you have visited so far in the Western Region, there is an impression that is coming up. What is your assessment of the response he has received so far?
Thank you very much, and good morning to our listeners. You know, they say democracy is the government, by the people, and then it is for the people. And it is the people that move the direction of governance. And I think it's the same thing in politics. Following, you could see the aspiration, of the people. I mean, the way they express themselves when they see the president, because they are looking for a leader. People look for great leadership. People who can, they can follow. And this is exactly what I'm seeing. That, if you look really into the meaning of the word democracy, then the people are writing their own history and they are choosing their leader.
Now, the trend, and I keep asking this, is that very young people are so much enthusiastic and they are the ones who mob the former president. Maybe the elderly have made their decision already. And if you look at the 2016 election and you track the trend of events, they played a critical role. Why is it that, unlike 2016, when in spite of what the former president has been speaking about as his track record, he didn't get that support, and now, after the experiencing the governance of President Akufo-Addo, the trend seems to have changed and it's overwhelming?
Yeah, because of the nature of youthfulness. Youthfulness, you can't contain it for a long time, And in 2016, even though the former president did a lot of work, but they felt that, something new should come into their lives. And the promises of the current president, looked a little bit juicy. If somebody is telling you, I'm going to give you $1 million for a constituency, wow. It's fantastic, because in a constituency, if you are getting $1 million every month, you can dream of what you are going to do with it. And then
the $1 million is for every year, I think.
Every year.
Okay. Yes.
It's okay for every year. If you multiply it by even 5, that's 5 billion cedis a year.
That's huge.
That's huge.
And can do a lot.
And can do a lot. It can transform, a constituency is not too big, Then one district, one factory, and so many promises, So they thought that, the former president was investing more in infrastructure. So this is 1 million, this is tangible. Some of the money will come into our pocket, that's the first thought. So obviously it became very attractive to Ghanaians and they believed. But now they are judging the former president on his achievements, the things that he told them. Now they are beginning to see it. It's become visionary, and now they realize that no, this is a better leadership. than the one that we consumed. You know.
Yesterday, the former president toured the coastal belt of the western region. He went to Nkrofo, for example, and paid a visit to the grave site of the Ghana's first president, Osajifo, Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. I noticed that they poured libation, and they will be showing the video as this conversation continues. How significant is that visit? Because anytime he goes to the western region, he goes there. Any president will obviously visit there. But for the NDC and Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, and looking at what President John Mahama seems to have been doing before he lost elections, many people try to connect him and Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. For you as a politician, and those are the pictures of what happened at Nkrofo when we went there yesterday. How significant is this to you?
Well, this is very significant because Dr. Kwame Nkrumah is the father of the nation. And I mean, it is through, you know, his struggling that we gain independence. And at least if you compare him and you know, the former president, they all believe in the social, you know, political, you know, movement, looking at you know, the people, what people must get from you know, the wealth of a nation. I mean, there must be an equitable distribution of wealth. I mean, and you know, former president also believes in the same thing. And you could see that if you look at Nkrumah's things that Nkrumah did, I mean, our former president is also following the same trend. So this is very significant, and I think that you know, for many years to come, you know, Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, his philosophies, his ideas will still be part of us. And I think that this is something that we need to teach our, you know, young people.
So you are making reference to the bold decision to invest heavily in infrastructure, for example.
Definitely.
Which will have long-term benefits.
Definitely.
Many people I know have made reference to the Tema motorway, the Tema industrial area development, the railway sector, the many secondary schools Kwame Nkrumah built, among others. And that is what seems to be the conversation at Nkrofo when we went there yesterday. Now, I want us to listen to Nana Toku, who is the Western Regional Chairman of the NDC. He explains why the people in that part of the country, and that place is within the Elembele district,
yes,
should always vote for the NDC. I am interested in that particular soundbite because it makes reference to some specific issues about development and the benefit to the people in the area.
Abo ade energy asiaso sekani obedie ekani obenum a enka ebia enka wama nanso odwe ne manfo ho na sunsun foforo be hyere mu asase a yegyina so si eka Ghana abakwasemo a asase we asase a eye bidi asase a eniama pa firi mu aba enu nti gira yegyina yenim se sunsun foforo ena ma ba hya makofibu mu a oye ne oye nyina sunsun no eye hwan eye mene wo ye ofa ye nana ye hene ye de hye ye nuapani eni ade yina Dr. Kwame Nkrumah sunsumo odija lambre no sunsumo odija Nkrofo no eno na ye dia makofibo a ede ye adwuma ema mo bi anya no se de ye ne da no esai se sumiye eda oda osumie so na de achi a ofadwe foforo no waye ne ye trend ne ye fata ni anu malambrefo ema mo se samadwe ye beba bedada mo munyina mo dan so na nyame bekasa ye wura John Mahama eda number 2 enu nti wi hye uni a ka che se John Mahama say aba me da masi bebre nyame hyiram.
Watch the video, you notice that there were many women, young girls, and I saw some as old as 80 years who were among the hundreds who welcomed the former president. I want us to focus the conversation today on women in general. What are really the key issues that inform political party campaign issues that people must look up to and vote?
Yeah, thank you. You know, women form majority of our population, and then I think that you know, when you look at the productive sector, I mean, women are more engaged in the non-formal productive sector. Apart from being mothers, bringing, sustaining generations, they are also involved in agriculture and processing. So it is very, very important that, every political, institution must really pay a very particular attention to women, because they drive the movement. And in our culture, if you have a very strong woman in your house, I mean, she can decide where the family is going. Our queen mothers play a very important role in our traditional, history or our traditional society. I mean, they are part of the, selection of chiefs. And I think that it's time that we highlight the importance of women. We should not treat women as second-class citizens. They are there. You only call them, when you need something. And sometimes it's very painful that even in major decisions, men want to take those decisions, women's decisions. You see men coming forward to take those decisions for women, instead of women deciding for themselves.
You talked about women, or majority of them, being breadwinners. In this part of the country, Western, either they depend on the fishing industry, and I'm particularly interested in this because you have been a minister in charge of that sector before. Yesterday, when we drove along the coastal belt from Elubo through Ngrofo till we arrived in Takrady, I heard and noticed that many of them were saying, yeah bro, yeah bro, yeah bro. For you, after monitoring the sector over the period, what has changed and is making life a bit challenging for the average woman along the coastal belt?
So along the coastal belt, much, very little, has been invested in the coastal belt, and this is very sad. Ghana, in Ghana, 10% of our protein intake is from fish. Local production of fish is about 400,000 metric tons. But the total consumption is 950,000 metric tons. So it means we have to import fish to support our protein intake. Now when you look at the coastal belt, it is the women, you'll be surprised that it is the women who even support the fishermen. Some of the women have to provide, money to fishermen to go and, to buy fuel, to buy, fishing gears before they can move. And then when the fishermen, they bring, the catch to the shore, if the women are not there, the fish remains in the boat. It is the women who will come and take, clean, send them to the markets, and some will be sold fresh, some will be smoked, some will be cured, and they move the distribution of the fish along the market chain. So they are very, very, very important in the fishing industry. But then when you look at the coastal communities, you can see very little investment in the coastal communities. 60 years after independence, I mean, we still see mud houses. Then, so it's time, and I'm very happy for the former president, and late Professor Mos. There are key interests in the fishing industry, because we need to transform it. Because where you have 10% of your population, in the fishing industry, it's a huge chunk of human.
But some will ask, what significant investment did the NDC government, and in this case under John Mahama, because we are trying to compare records here, do to at least improve the conditions of many of these people or groups we are talking about at this moment?
Yeah, we made a significant investment subsidizing what we call the premix fuel. It is a special fuel that they use in their outboard motors to go fishing. And then the government subsidized 50% of the cost of the production of the fuel. And that's a lot of money. Then apart from that, we also subsidize, about 60% of their fishing gears, for them to have it at a controlled price to allow them to go fishing, and come and supply us with fish. Then we decided that looking at the dangers of the business, we set up the insurance scheme for fishermen. Under the World Bank project, we registered all the canoes. But if you look at the fishing industry, let me say that it's a very dynamic industry. We have industrial trawlers, huge industrial trawlers involved in tuna fishing, and they are mainly for export. And you'll be amazed that in a year they export almost $750 million worth of tuna and tuna product. Then we also have the small fishing trawlers. They bring fish. Then you have the canoe fishermen. So with the canoe fishermen, we registered all their boats, and then we decided to insure the canoes and insure 5 occupants of every canoe that goes out fishing, because sometimes they are met with huge storms and then accidents occur. So with the insurance company, we pay for the loss of the canoes, and then in case there is a loss of life, we also pay something to the family. So that was a very heavy insurance that the NDC government was doing. And we were also training, fishermen. We took fishermen overseas. We took some fishermen to even South Korea to see, the dynamics of the industry. And with the women, we were giving them credits and fishing gears like smoking, equip wire mesh to allow them to smoke. And we started building what we call the choco smokers, because we wanted women to stay away from direct heat and smoke.
I'll come to you to continue from where you have just stopped, because I want us to welcome Joyce Bawa Muktari. She speaks for the former President John Dramani Mahama. She's also a Deputy Minister for Transport. She's well known in the media circles because she speaks a lot on television and radio. Auntie Joyce, you are welcome.
Thank you very much.
We were talking about women, and I'm sure you've monitored the conversation while I was waiting to introduce you. She stopped at efforts government was making then to improve the lives of women along the coastal belt. And so this conversation, I just want to welcome you to our viewers by asking you for a little take on what Auntie Sherry Aite was talking about, and then I'll come back to her to continue what she's sharing with us.
Well, thank you very much, Eric, and thank you, Auntie Sherry. Very good morning to you, and good morning to all of you here in the Western region. Basically, we've been here, I think, for the last few days, and as Auntie Sherry was saying, all of the objectives that the National Democratic Congress had for embarking on the Speak Out tour was largely for us to engage the people of Ghana from all walks of life, to assess their needs. And one of the key constituencies that we were actually engaging regarding the People's Manifesto was the women. Do recall that women actually form a very huge demographic and actually make up about 51%. I even believe that it could be more in terms of our population. So they are key interest groups. They matter in all the things that we do. They are actually the main point of the logistics chain regarding the things that Auntie Sherry just said in terms of moving of all of these agricultural produce. In fact, in some cases, even women are sustainable farmers. They provide for their homes, they provide for their families, they sponsor their children's education. If you go to the cocoa growing areas in particular, you will find that a lot of the cocoa farms are actually being managed largely by women. They do form the core factor in our conversations regarding improvements to the livelihoods of the good people of Ghana. If you educate a woman, remember that you are educating a nation. If you liberate a woman economically, remember that you are giving the family empowerment. If you add value to products that are being marketed by women, remember that you are actually improving the value chain along the line. Certainly when you go to the fishing communities, the persons you see drying the fish, cleaning the fish, actually taking it to the market and carrying it around the towns and villages along the coast are all indeed women. If you find the women there, you find their children also engaged in similar endeavors. So certainly we look forward to the facts within our People's Manifesto that go out there to support and sponsor women-oriented businesses. I'm sure you do know that even in accordance or in line with President Mahama's vision regarding women, we do have presently a female running mate in the person of Professor Nana Jane Opoku-Agyeman. These are all factors that tell you that the commitment of the National Democratic Congress to the cause or causes of females in Ghana has never been in doubt. Indeed, Auntie Sherry is here. She is actually a key face and voice for the marginalized in our society, and largely women form a core number of these marginalized persons. She has been working all her life advocating for the cause of women.
Now, if I am listening to you or watching you as we share our thoughts on engagement with the people ahead of the 2020 elections, I want to find out, in the People's Manifesto, is there anything that is specific to the benefit of the average woman?
Well, certainly. First and foremost, beyond what Auntie Sherry has elaborated in terms of what will be done within the fishing communities, note that when we establish first and foremost the maternity periods of 4 months for women, I have a labor consultant who is a female. She was actually the very first to advocate for this addition to our manifesto, and I'm sure you have looked around and realized that women have actually warmly welcomed this news because they know what 4 months means to a young lactating mother. We have also looked at things to do with access to funds for our women. Women in the fishing sector, women in agribusiness and agricultural production, women in farming. What we intend to do is to create access to women-only business funds, and the manifesto speaks largely to this matter. Note also that when we look at affordable health care in terms of primary health care, first and foremost the beneficiaries will be women, mothers, whose children will require this first-hand care that is going to be extended. We also look at things to do with interventions by way of opportunities for women. President Mahama has promised that he will ensure that 30% of the appointments in his administration will be women. Indeed, he has taken a step by nominating a female as his running mate. It is the very first time that one of the largest opposition parties has gone out there to nominate a female running mate. I think that within itself constitutes a very positive commitment to the cause and causes of women and females generally. Note that for all of the interventions that we look at, the key beneficiaries when it comes to poverty alleviation interventions, the livelihoods for women, the skills training, the apprenticeship that will now be paid specifically for beauticians, for hairdressers, for people who are sewing and what have you. These are all interventions that will benefit largely our women in terms of access to better opportunities for them.
Okay, Joyce Bawa-Muktari speaks for former President John Mahama, and I'm also here with Sherry Aite, former Minister for the Fisheries Sector, veteran politician, as we all know. Auntie Sherry, before I introduced or welcomed Joyce, we were speaking to issues about the fisheries sector. I remember when we went to Abra in the central region, you addressed the gathering there. I want us to listen to them, and then we'll wrap up on the fishery sector, and then we'll look at other issues affecting women, because she talked about poverty, and I believe that in the manifesto there is something called free primary health care. When she spoke and made reference to poverty and women being the live wires in the average Ghanaian home, I just imagine a woman along the coastal belt who may have 5, 6, 7 children, who may have a husband who is not able to make the ends, struggle enough to get enough to keep the house going. How that will also help them. But let's listen to Auntie Sherry at Abra. After that, we'll talk about more issues.
Yaka premise, Yaka album motto. Na People's Manifesto. Yes, nyama.
You started.
Na Miss Minister no. Mpenyinfu obohun. There. Nsi yamba mazna ne yenye forestry phone kasa. Na yama won kwan ne yama wontwa log ni bi ma won. Yaza asha ya manifesto numu. There what aba no wazema yera mahama. Yababa mazna de ifi ehia log no na ezaka ye wo hama na embre. Ebien dama mahama kenu 4 years yeah insurance yazema afarfo na insurance na yeah no sa ekopo na ebia bibi oba time na me minister no wo hama say ana wo boa na yetua insurance company yetua na MPP fu be no sika na yeze ye insurance ma afaafu aze no wezi sika no wezi no wetwem na say anu yaba ya insurance no ya di social security so be ka ho afa obia benya insurance obia benya social security na se ejuma no eya na du baby na one housing obefoma yebaya fisherman's pension enti obia juma na bra ebenya pension o stand there one insurance our social security yera mahama wakasa na yenyim da aya wokopo a wayo ebia na hama no enenam ehia na ekefi Liberia wo hu nsi aza ahya hia manifesto numu da mo kan ye di GPS kenu honest bia ye be ma won GPS na ya link one to maritime authority iti baby and them bia navy fu wo bohu iti say you are na ma won signal a wo botun wa bohwehwe we ponodo no wanwa be fie wanwa be she na.
So that was, I think, the Center for National Culture in Cape Coast. And I remember you also raised other issues at Abra when you addressed them that night. Now, because Central and Western also have the coastal belt running through, I know that many people do not only survive because you call them fishermen or fishmongers. For the women, maybe people will talk about coastals, because when they buy the fish during bumper harvest, they should be able to keep them properly and eventually find market for them. How many of such coastals did the NDC manage to put up before you left office?
I think we had one in Adan, and then we were going to build the Jamestown, fishing, a very, satellite fishing harbor with coastal processing facilities. Then we had about 3 in central region. We had Nyanyano, we had another,
is it Mori?
No, there's a town, after Nyanyano, there's a town, we had a coastal, the fishing industry. So we also established a fish meal factory. And then we also had one at Shama, a big one. Yeah, we had one at Pram Pram.
And is it functioning from your checks as we speak?
Yes, Pram Pram was functioning because we created a cooperative. And we handed over the coastal to them. And they were, working because it was, very patronized by the fishermen. They take ice to go to sea for a long period to preserve the ice. But I think when the MPP came, they wanted to politicize everything. And they thought that those people managing the coastals, are NDC people. So today, tomorrow, and finally they man in charge just went and gave the key to the minister. The Shaman one is still running, but on and off. I think one of the things that we detected was that we didn't make provision for costs of power to the coastal, because they use a lot of electricity. So before we left, we were negotiating with electricity company, the Ministry of Energy, to allow electricity charges to be subsidized by government to the coastal. So that is where we left power. In fact, they agreed. So when we left, the new administration never followed up on that negotiation, because I left it in my handing over notes. So that is why most of them are not. I think about out of the 7 or 8, only 2 are working in 50-50.
Okay, so let me come to you, Auntie Joyce. You are relatively a very young woman in politics, and the generation that is coming up will be looking at people like you as role models. What can you point in the People's Manifesto that speaks to their expectations, particularly women and those who are suffering along this part of the country?
Well, I think that basically you should look at each area has its own specific challenges and key sectors that affect the particular locality. But I also know that generally, as a people, most of the issues that affect women affect them across the country. I'm sure you've heard Professor Nana Jane speaking largely to sanitary pads and their production. You recall that a World Bank facility was secured under President Mahama at the time, and Parliament refused to even recognize the relevance and importance of this intervention. Indeed, what President Mahama promises to do in the Women's Manifesto is to give subsidized facilities in terms of taxes and tax reduction to all persons who want to go into the manufacturing of sanitary pads and towels and matters related thereto to women. I think this is a fantastic opportunity for the girl child. It will help keep them in school. It will help ensure that they have sanitary pads available readily, and these will be distributed along the educational value chain. I think this is fantastic for young women. The second thing will be to do with improved access to education. Once the double track facility is cancelled, it would mean then that children who are unable to enter existing facilities will be put in private institutions, and government bursaries paid to these institutions to cater for these young children. It then means that parents will now be saving, especially for those who are going out there to rent facilities for their children, because they have been placed in public facilities that are not within the localities in which they live. Note that we had actually started the construction of the 200 E-blocks. These projects will then be completed and used to augment existing educational facilities in the country. Thirdly, as I indicated, one of the highest selling points is to do with jobs and job creation. The youth bulge in Africa is crying for engagement. Formal government must make sure that we create opportunities and interventions that engage these young people. The Big Push agenda is a 10 billion job creation agenda. It will focus on infrastructure, it will focus on roads, it will focus on affordable housing, it will focus largely on access to jobs and job creation. And I believe that largely young men and women who are both crying for permanent opportunities will then be looking forward. In the public sector alone, President Mahama promises to improve the number of police to citizen ratio. This means that opportunities will be created there for both men and women to be engaged. He promises to depoliticize the security services. This means that once we are able to do this, we will then open up opportunities for young persons in and around the country. The private healthcare project is one of our biggest items on this People's Manifesto. It will go to serve all of our young people, both male and female. Remember, the nurses are still crying out for placement. If we bring primary health care to the doorstep of each and every citizen and society, it means then that young people who are trained nurses, and remember, there are largely more female training as nurses than there are men. they would also then find opportunity and expression for themselves. So I believe that the manifesto is not just a people's manifesto because it addresses matters to do with the economy, matters to do with agric, matters to do with road infrastructure, and all of the other key sectors. It is also because of the little opportunities that it affords to young people. Above all, that we will be engaging 30% and ensuring that that quota system works. I've heard Nana James speak also to the passing of the affirmative action bill. Auntie Sherry is here. It will also ensure that we are able to engage more females to enter the seat of parliament, because that is where decisions are made. If you have more women engaging in the assemblies right through to the parliamentary business, then you do know that matters concerning women will receive national attention, and this is an objective of the People's Manifesto.
Okay, so this is live from Hillcrest Hotel, and they have several attractive facilities. You can tell from the background when Joyce Bawa Muktari or Sherry Aite is speaking. There's a swimming pool here. I wish I don't have any busy schedule today. I would have jumped in after this show. Apart from that, they have conference room and several other facilities. You can do your meeting here, and Hillcrest Hotel is a household name in the Western region. And so they have, I'm told they have also put up several apartments, and you can come here with your family, have a weekend, rest, and enjoy life. What is life about? It's short. You just have to make sure you enjoy it to the fullest. This is the morning update. I'll be engaging you briefly on what seems to be a very sorry state of those who are trying to make ends meet. When we went to Elubo yesterday, I could feel that the environment was not the Elubo we know. Businesses seem to have grinded to a halt. I don't know whether it's about the closure of the border. And then this region is almost like central. It's not about fishing. We have the cocoa sector, we have bad roads, and we have several other expectations. The oil industry is also another area. And so we'll be taking a short break, but before that, I want you to just watch this video. It comes with the ambience, the excitement around the former president as he went around some of the communities along the coastal belt when we